Blackhawk Technical College President Tracy Pierner, and Janesville School District Superintendent Steve Pufall. Again, gentlemen, thank you for joining us. Today's format is going to be allowing each of you 10 to 12 minutes to talk about how your institutions are responding to the special circumstances of this coronavirus pandemic. And then we already have several questions that have been submitted, and I'll do my best to sift and sort and try to get those questions out after you've given your remarks. I know it's hard in 10 to 12 minutes because there's so much to talk about, but we are limited, unfortunately, by this 1 hour thing, and so I would encourage you to be brief. With that, I'm going to ask University of Wisconsin-Whitewater Chancellor Dwight Watson to begin. Chancellor Watson?
Well, good afternoon. Can everyone hear me?
You're coming through loud and clear. Thank you.
All right. Good afternoon, and thank you all for the opportunity to speak with the members of Forward Janesville. It's wonderful being able to share the work that is going on, making the return to our campuses as safe as possible. It is truly a monumental task to ensure the health and safety of our campuses as we return to our modified normal status in the fall. The term modified normal is one that we have been using throughout the campuses, and I encourage you all to use the same. This work is being handled by our Emergency Operations Center, or the EOC. The EOC represents areas from across campus and reports directly to me and the Cabinet for final decisions. We've involved our governance leaders in these discussions for collaboration and consultation. In order to focus on our work, we have established guiding principles for the fall semester. And the principles are: UW-Whitewater will prioritize students' and employees' health and student academic progress in planning and delivering its mission for fall 2020. So focusing on health and safety is one of our major priorities. We want to also maximize our in-person instruction. We want to make sure that we have as many face-to-face courses as possible. We also want to make sure that housing is open and available for our students in the fall, and that Whitewater will offer flexibility for employees, particularly in high-risk categories, to work remotely to the extent practical. We will maintain public and stakeholder confidence through frequent and transparent communications in a variety of modalities. And so thank you for giving us an opportunity to speak today so that we can assure the public that we are ready to open. We will monitor the impact of decisions on our financial viability. You might wonder if some of these principles conflict with one another, and they might, but we want to focus on our first priority, which is to remain open and safe for our students and our faculty, as well as our staff. In late June, we released an executive summary called Warhawk's Return, Practices for Fall 2020. This concise document lays out our key principles of operation, includes links to more detailed information for your review. If you desire, you may go on the website to view this document. Let me share a few of the highlights from the document. We have outlined a number of preventative measures that we are asking our students, faculty, and staff to commit to for the sake of their own health and safety and those around them. These include social distancing, or keeping a minimum of 6 feet in all directions between you and another person. Social distancing is required in all areas of our campus, both indoors as well as outside. Facial coverings have been shown to reduce the spread of infections. Appropriate facial coverings must cover both the nose and the mouth and are required to be worn at all times while in public areas, shared spaces in all buildings, hallways, classrooms, restrooms, and university vehicles, as well as outdoors when social distancing cannot be maintained. We understand that some people may not be able to wear facial coverings for medical reasons, and there is an exemption process in place for those individuals. We are also pleased that the City of Whitewater has enacted a facial covering ordinance that will begin August 1st. Hand sanitizer will be provided in all classrooms, department offices, and other key areas of all buildings. Cleaning and disinfecting of campus buildings will happen frequently, and classrooms will be equipped with cleaning materials, hand sanitizer, and disposable face coverings. Individuals will be asked to clean their personal space before and after use, and classrooms will also be cleaned regularly by custodians. Daily individual online health screening will be requested for anyone who is on campus or coming to campus. The quick survey advises those who may have symptoms to remain at home. The survey will assist with contact tracing if necessary. We are working hard with the UW system to evaluate testing options, protocols, and processes to evaluate our campus community's health in the fall. We have contracts for 3 organizations to provide testing for our students. We're also looking at other options to increase our capacity. We have a health committee that is meeting with all 3 of the county health departments to cover both UW Whitewater campuses, and they are the Rock Health Department, Jefferson Health Department, and Walworth County Health Department. We are grateful for these collaborations, and we work to keep our communities and our campuses safe. Now, one of the big questions is focusing on the learning environment itself. And as we've stated before, we want to open as widely as possible for our students while still providing as much protection for both students and faculty and staff. Our classes will begin in the fall as planned on Wednesday, September the 22nd. But after Friday, November 20th, all courses will move to fully remote modality for the remainder of the fall semester. Residence halls and dining services will remain open for students who prefer to remain on campus. In the next week or so, students will be informed regarding the format of their classes. The amount of face-to-face time will be unique to each course. There are several modalities of courses, and they include face-to-face. All students will meet face-to-face during class period. About 40% of our courses will be held this way. There's an online format. Online courses are developed in advance using techniques that primarily involve asynchronous instruction. UW has been a leader in this type of instruction, and we offer an exceptional online experience. About 30% of our classes will be online, and that's pretty similar to other semesters. And now we have a hybrid format. The class will be taught with a mix of face-to-face and remote teaching, and some subset of the students would meet face-to-face during the class period, while other students would learn remotely. Other days, a different cohort could meet face-to-face during a class period, and other students will learn remotely. About 30% of our classes will be held in this hybrid fashion. Our residence hall will be open, and we are nearing capacity. We have welcomed about 90 students who attend classes at the Rock County campus into the halls this fall. This is our 3rd year to offer Rock County students a place to live in Whitewater campus, plus transportation to and from the Rock County campus. We have made the Warhawk return plan easily accessible on our homepage. Recently, we approved the hiring of additional nursing staff for the University Health and Counseling Services to support our students. This fall, health services will be available at Rock County campuses as well. We are so pleased we can provide this critical service locally. When each student arrives on campus, they will receive a welcome kit. Included in that kit will be a Warhawk branded facial covering, hand sanitizer, a thermometer that gives the digital readout, and a copy of our campus social covenant. The Warhawk social covenant asks individuals to take responsibility for their own health, to behave in ways that protect others, and to help prevent the spread of COVID-19 and other risks that impact our university family and our community. This document was developed by student leaders in consultation with student affairs and others on campuses. We're proud of the outcome and offer the document to others to use in their communities. I think you will have access to that document today. Some colleges and universities are asking students to sign pledges or even liability waivers. We do not believe that this is the approach that will work best for us. We believe that our Warhawks work hard to do the right thing, and about encouraging them rather than hammering them with rules, that we can develop a culture of support and care. We also believe our students are committed to keeping our campuses open. There's much hand-wringing nationally over the inability for college students to refrain from risky behavior. We hear from our students that they are prepared to adjust their behaviors in order to keep campuses safe. The Whitewater Student Government is working to help students understand their responsibilities. I don't want to sound Pollyannish about this situation. Instead, we're taking the approach of trusting our students and respecting their commitment to each other and the UW-Whitewater community. There will be many opportunities for educating students on the proper social behaviors. Our campus leaders understand that they, too, must abide by the social covenant and be the examples that we want our students to emulate. I can hardly go anywhere these days without someone asking me about the future of Warhawk athletics. As you have likely heard, the WIAC announced last night that there will be no fall competition. While this is a difficult news for us, it is the right decision. Keeping our student athletes healthy and safe is critically important. Many of the events that draw in community members to our campus will be held virtually this year. We have a group looking at the potential of a ceremony for our spring graduates and December commencement. I wish I was more optimistic about the potential for these events to be in person, but the current public health numbers are telling us a different story. Of course, all of this has come at a great cost to our university. We've had to return to $2.25 million in state support for the fiscal year 2020, and we will also expect a lapse in state support for 2021. We've had $2.9 million in additional operational revenue losses from camps and other revenue-generating sources, and more than $1.4 million have been spent on COVID supplies, temporary labor, and technology. We also provide housing, dining, and other refunds in the spring, resulting in a total lost revenue of more than $10.6 million. Fortunately, we developed a financial model and plan in 2019 that had us already focused on efficiencies that resulted in savings nearing $14 million, putting us in a better position to weather these challenges. Once COVID arrived, we took additional actions by implementing furloughs, renegotiating contracts, and through attrition and other reductions in expenses, we immediately curbed our costs in anticipation of revenue losses. As business leaders, I know you are likely to be facing your own financial impacts from COVID-19. We know we are not the only ones suffering in this difficult time. While I am an optimistic person by nature, these financial stresses are a challenge for our institution. Our Chief of Staff and Government Relations, Carrie Heidenreich, and I are working closely with other state legislators and federal delegations to leverage as much assistance as possible from those sources. We are pleased that former Governor and now UW System Interim President Tommy Thompson is using his contacts and influence to help bring in additional financial resources to the UW system. President Thompson, as you all know, is the biggest cheerleader here for the UW system. His passion and commitment to helping our campus is critical. I'm proud to be working side by side with him at this pivotal time in our legacy university history. I believe I'm nearing my allotted time. I want to again thank you all for this opportunity, for your overwhelming support of UW-Whitewater. I know this group is filled with many of our alums and many, many friends of the institution. We are proud partners with Forward Janesville, and we look forward to continuing to develop our relationship. Again, thank you all.
And thank you, Chancellor Watson. I'm struck by just how complicated, how many variables there are that you have to think through to make this work. I mean, holy sh. I do want to check and see if Steve Pufall is on the line. Steve, are you on the line? No. Okay, well, we're going to go to
I'm
Blackhawk
here.
Technical College. Oh, you are there, Steve?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure because we had multiple callers with that number you gave us. We weren't sure if we chose the right one. So
I'm
we're
here.
all good. All right. Well, we're going to, I think I'm going to go to Blackhawk Technical College President Tracy Pierner next and have him offer up some insights as to how the technical college is preparing for this semester. Tracy?
Hey, John, thanks. Pleasure being here. I appreciate the invite. Yeah, it certainly has been a complex and a time for us, but had a little bit of an advantage here. We actually started planning for this back in January, and we much like most of an emergency planning operations, we have a emergency preparedness committee that establishes our overall protocols, and then we have a day-to-day management team. It's called the incident management team that will manage day-to-day activities and adherence to the protocols. So we established a 7-stage reopening plan. So to kind of go back in time, on March 18th, we announced stage 1, which was the closing of campuses, no different than other institutions across the state. But we were able to reopen and move to stage 2 on March 24th, and that made us a little bit different. And specifically, our law enforcement academies and our jail academies were deemed essential operations by the governor's office. So we had already established a stage 2 reopening plan that we moved to on March 24th. And that was very valuable because that gave us several weeks of kind of fine-tuning our protocols and our plan. And on April 27th, we were authorized to move to stage 3, which was the invitation of all of our health programs back to campus. And so we actually we finished out all of our health program students and our public safety students by the normal kind of graduation time and finishing up their hands-on activities, with a few exceptions really in the nursing area where some of the clinical rotations were not able to occur because the hospitals had shut down clinical slots, but they reopened over the summer and those students are finishing out. But nonetheless, we sat at stage 3 in May in preparation for May 26th going to stage 4. Stage 4 was bringing back all additional programs that needed to finish out their hands-on experiences. And we also, at the same time, back in March, had delayed the ending of spring semester out a month and into June. So we were able to do that. We finished up students June 13th. And then we moved and we announced a movement to stage 5 on June 22nd. And so that's the one I'm going to talk about. That's where we are today. In stage 5, we did make the decision back towards the end of June. We announced that we are going to go no further than stage 5 in fall semester, and we will reevaluate in January, but we will go no further than stage 5. But we are also prepared to go back to stage 4. So I'll talk about that a little bit. So right now, the college is currently open for in-person, online, and hybrid courses, but anyone who comes to any Blackhawk location must wear a face mask and follow physical distancing guidelines. And as I mentioned, on June 22nd, we went to the stage 5. So what does stage 5 consist of? Well, we've had to reconfigure our air circulation systems. We've set up all of our classrooms for social distancing. All extra chairs have been removed. We have diagrams within the classroom where students are allowed to sit. Every classroom has been remarked to a maximum capacity that cannot be exceeded. There are the same cleaning, sanitation processes in all spaces that Dr. Watson had mentioned. We're doing the same thing following the CDC guidelines. We've installed all necessary plexiglass and sneeze guards around campus. We have marked off all locations where there's a 6-foot distance, so any lines or any congregation of people, we've got marked where people can stand. But in addition, throughout this time, we have invested literally hundreds of thousands of dollars into classroom technology and also computers and hotspots. So for fall, and this is also true for summer semester, but for fall semester, every student that comes to Blackhawk Technical College will have a laptop available to them. They will also have a hotspot, if necessary, available to them. And 100% of our classrooms on all campuses are equipped for MyEd Choice. And that is our word for all classes, as a minimum, will be offered in 3 modalities for the same class. Students can come to class if they choose to live, in the social distanced format with the masking, but students can also interact live via Zoom, or they could do it asynchronously as an online class. So every single one of our classes are done this way. And as I mentioned, we are prepared to move back to stage 4. What stage 4 means is we close down open access, and you only can be here for your hands-on activities during the time span in which it's scheduled, and there's no loitering on campuses, and then there's temperature checks taken at the doorway. But in stage 5, we are allowing, we got 3 entrances. People are allowed in unscheduled, but we are, and then we do have our cafeteria is open, our common areas are open, but it's all been reconfigured for social distancing. So as I mentioned, we have no active screening protocols right now, but we do practice that physical distancing, face mask inside our buildings, and we sanitize workspaces before and after use. Now, accommodations are made for individuals who are unable to wear face masks, as we thank Prent for delivering a couple thousand face shields for us, so we have those available. We also have thermometers and face masks available for any visitor to our campus, and we have enough face masks now that every student and every employee would have a new face mask available every day throughout the semester. We do have some staggered work schedules for some of our personnel, and this is really necessary in areas where the social distancing is not appropriate. So we do have some staggered work schedules, but everybody is back at work. We also have shuttle services that are in operation as we speak. They have been also reconfigured with some separation from the driver, and in our seating, it's all limited seating. Our bookstore is back open. As I mentioned, food services has resumed, vending machine has resumed. We've got our student union reopened, but all with different protocols in terms of social distancing. So other things that we've done that other institutions have is we've amped up our Wi-Fi on all campuses so that in all campuses you can drive onto our parking lot and get Wi-Fi coverage if you don't have home internet. But also, as I mentioned, all students have available the hot zones for hotspots, and those are available all for free along with the laptops. And then we also have our student cupboard that is going, and we have over $20,000 been donated to our student cupboard, and that has been utilized every day by our students throughout this entire pandemic. As students can call in their grocery order, we will pack the groceries, and then they come by and pick that up. So that continues. And then also all of our student services and tutoring are all available online if a student doesn't want to come in. But if they do want to come in, those resources are there here on campus. So as I mentioned, we plan on staying in stage 5. We will go no further than stage 5, but we are prepared academically and business operations to move back to stage 4. So that is what I had for a report. I hope that covers what you needed.
That was great, Tracy, and good luck with, boy, there's so many variables there to manage. I expect everybody will cooperate, and this we'll give it a good Blackhawk Technical College try, but no doubt about it, this is a very challenging situation. We'll finish up with Janesville School District Superintendent Steve Pufall. Steve?
Thank you, John, and thank you, Forward Janesville members, for affording me an audience with you today to update you on the district's work to continue educating kids this fall. I start with a story. About 10 years ago, my daughter was an undergraduate, and she was doing a semester of study in Spain. And I had an opportunity to go spend a week with her, and we got up into the Pyrenees in the north of Spain, and we were doing some hiking. And we were above the tree line one day. And unexpectedly, we see this spindly little tree that somehow had found a way on what appeared to be nothing but a sheer rock cliff to have laid roots and found a way to have grown where no other tree seemed able to do so. And, therein lies the challenge that all of us are confronted with at this moment in time. Against all odds, somehow trying to find a way to find a sweet spot, if you will, when seemingly none exists. A sweet spot that somehow balances the important needs that we have to make sure our kids are learning, that their social and emotional needs are met, that they're being fed, to make sure that we're mindful that we're part of a larger community, that we impact based on our decisions, and also, obviously, to make sure that we're keeping kids and our staff as absolutely safe as possible, as has been outlined by my two predecessors. I don't know that sweet spot exists. If it does, it's small and it's moving because the nature of the virus is fluid. And so we continue to work closely with the health department. We continue to rely on experts to be experts. We're dealing, obviously, with a bit of a different population than UW and BTC. We have 9,700 4 to 18-year-olds in our care and 1,400 adults who serve them each and every day. Having said all of that, we tried to have a couple of drivers in our decision making, and it's a long list, but I'll share a couple that I think are maybe most relevant for this group. And those drivers included things like, while change is uncomfortable and while crises is certainly not something anybody invites through the front door, crises can also provide an opportunity. And so our leadership team from the very beginning has tried to look at not just how do we survive COVID, but how do we build a better school district of Janesville for the next generation of kids? How do we take advantage of the crises to forward some change that needs to be made, driven by our district's strategic plan, known as our promises, and actionize those things now and lay a foundation to actionize those things into the future. In addition to that, we really felt it was important, again, based on the nature of our population, that parents have an important voice in, the decision-making, obviously alongside of our staff. And so at the end of the day, we have rolled out a plan that really provides a range of options programmatically to our families. We have a face-to-face option. It's a all-day, every-day, 5-day face-to-face option for those children and families who feel that that is their sweet spot. We have a complete virtual option for all kids from 4 years old on up, and that's through Arise Virtual Academy. And we're strategically positioned because of having a 14-year-old virtual school with a well-documented track record of success of being able to take that core faculty and grow that program and that staff to provide service to a significantly increased number of kids. And finally, for our middle and high school kids, we have a hybrid option as well. There are obviously different ways to define hybrid, but for us, again, taking advantage of the fact that we have a rise in our repertoire of program options, being able to say that kids could take part of their day as middle or high school students at their home school and then be virtual for another part of the day. And there's no magic about how we define part. That will be defined individually for each child. And so it could be, that a youngster is taking their 4 core academic classes in the morning virtually through Arise, and then in the afternoon they might be at Parker High School taking a welding class and going to Spanish or whatever other classes they might have picked. So we provide this range of options for our families, and it does a number of things for us. First of all, it empowers parents to have some control over what they believe is going to work best for their kids. In addition to that, it provides some benefits for us. As you can well imagine, amongst a faculty of 1,400, we have some staff who are vulnerable, who have underlying health conditions, and we want to do the very best we can to accommodate their work environment, but to keep them really out of harm's way. And so as students sign up to be virtual or hybrid, it affords us the opportunity to reassign those staff members to become virtual teachers if that's an option they are interested in, which again really provides some separation for them and safety that comes along with that. In addition to that, as students choose virtual and choose hybrid, the size, to use public health department language, the size of the herd, if you will, at each of our respective physical schools begins to shrink. And as the size of the herd begins to shrink, therein lies our ability to then put the safety protocols in place. And I will just say that pretty much a lot of what you just heard from our two predecessors in terms of distancing, face coverings, cleaning protocols, symptom tracking, directional, arrows and traffic flows in the hallways, and a whole host of other things as recommended, again, by the CDC and the health departments here in Wisconsin and in Rock County are all in play. I can tell you that as of 9 o'clock this morning, we are in the middle of registration for the fall term. 40% of our families had registered their children as of this morning, and 1,400 of them, or about 1/3, have opted to either be virtual or hybrid. So if that pattern holds up, we will have a significant reduction in the number of kids physically at school, which again really then helps us to really honor those safety protocols throughout the day for our kids. I could go on and on. There's so much more to say. We're one-on-one. I guess the other thing I do want to say is we're realistic, and again, working closely, particularly in this instance with the Rock County Health Department, we realize that it's entirely possible that we will have cases of COVID. We have all kinds of protocols in place for that. We have, for example, 2 health rooms now dedicated in each of our schools instead of 1. You can't really set a kid who just scraped their knee on the playground next to a kid who you might be worried about having COVID, right? And so we have to have separate physical spaces, and we have to be able to staff that. And so all the protocols that go along with that are in place and being developed. We are, in the spirit of one of my earlier comments, not just surviving COVID, but building a better new normal. We've really been able to take significant steps forward in being more clear about what the standards are that drive each of our courses, being more clear about an agreed upon instructional model, being settled in on learning management systems that are consistent across all grade levels and buildings, putting the tools in place so that whether face-to-face instruction is going on, or if we have to pivot closed for anywhere from a couple of days for deep cleaning in a school to a couple of weeks to quarantine at a building level or beyond, we hope not, but beyond if necessary, that transition can be far more seamless than it would have been this spring when we really had no warning and had to pivot from face-to-face to virtual instruction. In other words, the kids will already have the physical tools in their hands. They'll be using the same software and the same instructional pedagogy that will serve them well, either face-to-face or in a virtual environment if we need to go there at buildings or the district level. We're grateful for the support of our community. We recognize that as a public school, we reflect the community. And so I would add my voice to the chorus of, really pleading with our community and all of you as business leaders and community leaders who, have influence in your places of employment. To the extent that we've studied, and we have extensively, other communities and other nations that have gone back to school, invariably, if the virus is under control in those communities where they've reopened, the experience tends to be safe and positive in school. And unfortunately, the opposite of that is true as well. So to the extent that we're able to alter behaviors, not just at school, but across the community, and really have our community be a safe place for everybody through good practices and protocols, that will manifest itself inevitably in our schools in either a positive or negative direction. And so I ask for your support in moving that agenda forward, and I will bring my remarks to a close with that.
Well, thank you, Steve. I think you've really answered one of the first questions that was sent to us about the Arise Academy. You're already suggesting a significant boost in the enrollment in that academy. The corollary for our other guest is, what are we seeing for enrollment this fall? Do you expect a decline? If so, do you have some guesstimates as to what that level of change is? I'll start with you, Chancellor Watson.
Our incoming class enrollment is flat. That means that the amount of students that we had last year this time is similar to the amount of students that we have coming in this year. We have about 400 students that we're still trying to find what's going to happen to them. They are students who were registered last year and now have not decided to return. These are students in our sophomore and junior classes. We feel that once the release of their schedule with the types of courses that they will have, we feel that they will be making the decision. Our admissions team and registrars are reaching out to each student individually. When the pandemic hit, a lot of people were saying that students were going to take a gap year and just sort of wait it out. And we keep saying, why a gap year? The economy is sort of not at its best. Jobs are not at its best. Maybe you should be in school. You can't really travel abroad or do whatever you would like to do on a typical gap year. So let's stay in school. And so I hope that you can encourage others to stay in school if they're thinking about taking a gap year.
It might even be the case that you would get more attention under these circumstances than you would otherwise.
Well, we're looking at the Rock County enrollment. Rock County notoriously have people that enroll a little bit closer to the beginning of the semester. So we're hoping that people who might find themselves in some sort of occupational transition might think about picking up an associate degree and maybe moving it towards a bachelor's.
President Pierner, what are you seeing at Black Hawk Technical College? Any indications what kind of enrollment change you might look at?
Yeah, we built the budget because of the unknown. We did build this year's budget in preparation for a 25% enrollment decline because we didn't want to be caught, kind of flat-footed on this. We did announce some layoffs last month as a result of that budget adjustment. But what we ended up seeing, if you were to talk to me 6 weeks ago, we were down around 40%. But as of today, we're down 6%. It's been trending aggressively upward. So there's probably a pretty good chance that we end up even or flat, which is much better, obviously, than what we expected. But furthermore, we do expect an enrollment incline in the midterm. Now, what that midterm is anybody's guess. I think that's when we start really having treatment for the COVID. We might see the backside of this on the economy as unemployment goes up. Our enrollment tends to go up too. So short term, we were prepared for a decline. It looks like it might be flat. And then midterm, we are expecting and preparing for an enrollment incline.
Well, that's flipping the script. I would not have expected you to say that, so that's good news.
Very good
next
news,
question is, all three of you can take a crack at this. I'll start with you, Superintendent Pufall. What is the threshold where you just transition to all virtual? In other words, how many positive tests would it take for you to suspend in-person construction? And would you do it perhaps building by building?
Yeah, we're actually working with the health department right now, and when I say we, not just the school district of Janesville, but all of the districts in Rock County. We all meet virtually with the health department on a weekly basis, and we're actually awaiting some potential anticipated support from the state health department on that issue as well. So what I'm going to say right now is very draft oriented and not the specific plan, because again, we're really waiting for guidance from the local and state health department on this. But yeah, specifically, John, we do see that it's possible that we might have a situation in a building and need to pivot that building closed again for anywhere from a couple of days to a couple of weeks, depending on the circumstances of what's happening in that building. And the other buildings in the district might be, humming along just fine and not have any cases. And so, what would cause the district to close again? Well, at the macro level, notwithstanding cases or outbreaks, that's going to be again driven by the evolution of the virus. And when, if the county has to, go back to phase one, let's say, for example, that would make it highly likely that the district would probably have to pivot closed while that was going on. We certainly hope that doesn't happen. At the kind of case level, if we hit a certain critical mass, and again, this is where we're going to be looking for those guidelines, but I'll just use an example of, I'll say if all of a sudden we've had to pivot a quarter or a third of our schools closed at the same time, knowing that we have a lot of cross-pollination with families with kids at multiple ages and multiple different schools, so there's going to be a threshold based on cases where we could have to temporarily pivot the district closed as well. So those are a couple different scenarios, and again, our goal is to keep trying to find that balance point between safety and meeting the academic and other needs of our kids.
I guess I'll go to Chancellor Watson next with the same question. Do you have metrics in mind where you would just pivot to all virtual?
Yeah, we have we're across three different counties: Rock County, Jefferson, and Walworth County. So we have to check in with what's going on in all of those counties, and we have to make sort of decisions across all three counties when it comes to what is our threshold numbers. But we do have a plan ahead team at the system, and the plan ahead team at the system is looking at that. Currently, our threshold number is saying that if we have 26 cases in a week, that's enough to signal that we should be thinking about closing. We feel that number is too low, especially if we move from symptomatic testing to more asymptomatic testing. And so that's one of the things with us is that we are focusing on testing our students in various places, so therefore we're going to get results that others who are not testing might get. And so we have to take all those things into consideration. Now, when someone is tested as positive on our campus, we have quarantine and isolation spaces, tracking and tracing, and the various other things that we need to do. Because we're a residential campus, we have to focus on that more readily. I don't know whether the other campuses have to do that, or they just send their students home, and then that becomes the work of the health department. But residential campuses have to not only follow up with a symptom test and report to the health department and then begin to track and trace so that we could focus on other students who might have been infected by that particular student.
Thank you. Tracy, naturally I want to give you a chance to answer the same question because a lot of people are going to be hanging on every word here. What's your plan?
Well, at the macro level, we follow the both state and local health guidelines, and so we would, much like Steve talked about, we would follow what Rock County and Greene County health departments, what stage they were at. So that's where we kind of at that macro level look to. Now, getting on the campus level, we've already had multiple folks that have COVID that have been on our campus, and folks have been exposed. But because of our procedures and our protocols, we have not had one spreading event on campus. So that's really what we're talking about. So what we do is we have a very strict protocol when there is somebody who has a confirmed case on campus, and like I mentioned, we have had that a couple of times. It's a 24-hour lockdown of that area, followed by a sanitation before the area is reopened. In addition, the folks that are exposed, there is a 10-day, essentially they can't come back to campus for 10 days and a negative test is required. So that's on that kind of really localized level, but we have been looking at it. It's really program by program and department by department. So like I mentioned, as an example, our jail academy, we had somebody that tested positive, and the law enforcement and jail academies were shut down until there were negative tests. Then we brought folks back and continued on, and that was a delay of 10 days. Department by department then is if one of our workers had it and exposed others, we would shut down that department, again, for that same amount of time, sanitize, all of that stuff. Now, what we're looking at is if we have a spreading event on campus, that's really the thing that is going to trigger us to go backwards in stages. So your question is more about actually going back to all online. We would go back in stages. So right, as I mentioned, we're in stage 5 right now. If we had spreading events on campus, we would go back to stage 4. And what we're leaning on is a super spreading event would immediately put us to a virtual environment if it was that we deemed something that was wrong in our classrooms. We would immediately back off. So hopefully that makes sense. It's a super spreading event. I think it's like 10 exposures or something like that. I can't remember, but we've got that in our handbook and our protocols.
And that makes logical sense. You got to get a handle on it real fast if there's a super spreading event. My next question is for all of you. We'll start with Chancellor Watson. What is the mood of the staff? And have there been considerations for certain teachers or professors to appear virtually because of a established medical condition? And a sort of, I have lots of questions about teachers here, and I'm going to throw another angle in, and that is, if a teacher is in fact comes up COVID positive and they have to quarantine for at least 14 days, does that mean they use up their sick time off for the year, or if you had to change your policies to accommodate this situation? Chancellor Watson?
The first part of the question is that we want to make sure that our staff can work as remotely as possible so that we can focus on decreasing the density on campus so that those who have to be on campus are on campus and those people who can work from home can continue to work from home. Those people who are essential and are on campus but have a pre-existing or existing medical condition can file for an exemption when it comes to working on campus. If you are concerned about working on campus and you are the caretaker of someone who is vulnerable or at risk, you can apply for an exemption. Or if there's some child care pieces that you have to figure out and you need to work in a telework type of way, you can ask for an exemption. Due to the fact that we are creating all of our courses so that they can be high flex and they can pivot if there's a resurgence of the virus, our faculty can, if they're quarantined and have to or isolated and are capable, they can still conduct their classes from home. And if you are off from work because of medical reasons, you can request FMLA.
How about you, Dr. Pufall? What are you looking at in terms of the mood of the staff?
Yeah, I mean, it I think probably is reflective of, any other large group of people, right? You have some people, whose beliefs, fall on one end of the spectrum and others on another end, and a lot of people in the middle in terms of ranging from let's get back to school and get kids, in the classroom to, geez, I don't think we should be doing this and we should just be virtual completely. And there's definitely that range of beliefs amongst our faculty. I think I commented earlier that for those folks with documented medical, accommodations that we need to make, we're going to try to give them the option to, become virtual teachers at Arise, so that we keep them out of harm's way. We definitely are pivoting in our HR department, kind of pretty much what Dr. Watson just said. If somebody's quarantined because they were exposed but they're not sick, well, that doesn't mean they can't teach. And so that particular teacher's classroom could be pivoted to virtual for that 10-day window that we described earlier in the conversations. Obviously, we have all the same FMLA and FCCLA, the new regs around quarantine that we're honoring as well. We're required to follow, frankly. So. And so, I think our policies for human resources are evolving. We're obviously the safety of our staff is a high priority. We can't have school if we don't have healthy staff. And so we're, diligent about that. And so, yeah, a range of work.
As you would expect. And Dr. Pierner, I think you should have a chance to answer that as well. What's the mood of the staff and the teaching faculty at Blackhawk Technical College?
Oh, I think Steve hit it on the head. We have a spectrum of folks. There's we've got some frequently asked questions and some concerns for the faculty that are going to be coming back to campus here. Staff have been back. They've been back at work since June, as I mentioned earlier. And I think in general, most of the concerns, if not all of them, have been alleviated. We do have to follow the Families First Corona Response Act. So, anybody who needs accommodations certainly gets them. They work through Human Resources on that. The hardest thing is, to be honest, is getting people to adhere to social distancing and wearing the masks when you're outside of your working area. In other words, outside your office, you got to be masked. And we're not allowing 2 people in offices. So when you're in your office, one of the things that we always see is somebody walks up to talk to someone and they want to lean inside the doorway to talk to somebody. So it's really getting people to understand that we're very serious about enforcement of our protocols. But other than that, once people have been back, we've had no issues with anybody having major concerns. So now, fall semester is going to be a different story when we have 1,000 students on campus. So that's what we're preparing for.
I'm going to wrap things up with really a comment and kind of a question, and that is, do each of you have all of the personal protective equipment, the PPE that you need to protect your staff and students? Is that an issue at all?
We've been stockpiling PPE since the beginning of the crisis, and I think we're in good stead. Also, our system, UW system, has been stockpiling. The one thing about stockpiling is that you can buy early and in bundles and cheaply if you're ahead of the curve. And we've been doing that with testing equipment and testing pieces as well. We're also going to move forward with encouraging vaccinations because we will want people to have their flu vaccinations. So we've been buying, we'll be buying vaccination materials early as well. Because if you get your flu vaccination, and then you will know that if you just don't want anybody to think that they have COVID when they really have the flu. So we've been doing all that early, and I think we're good.
Yeah, that's going to be an issue everywhere. Dr. Pierner, do you have all the PPE you need?
Yep, just as Dr. Watson mentioned, ordering early and often, and we are stocked up for fall semester.
Good. And Superintendent Pufall, are you in good stead?
Yeah, I would echo what I've just heard. We have 40,000 cloth reusable face masks on site. Brent donated thousands of face shields for our staff. We going back to when this first started last March, just getting orders in for wall-mounted hand sanitizer dispensers for every classroom and every, kind of every space in the building, frankly, and so that, just pretty much exactly what we've been hearing from our colleagues.
You bet. Well, that's reassuring and good to hear that everybody seems to be prepared. As you will recall, when this hit in the business community, a lot of people were caught flat-footed and didn't have the PPE that they needed, and
right.
That's a very uncomfortable and, quite frankly, dangerous situation. So it's good
right.
to see we've moved past that. We're running out of time on the hour. I want to, again, thank Chancellor Watson, President Pierner, and Superintendent Pufall for joining us and answering these questions from our members. And I hope you have a good and very safe day. Thanks for joining us.
All right. Take care.
Take care, everybody.
John.
Thank you.
You bet.